we see organizations like pursue efficiency, do more with less. That culture is very common nowadays. What risks have you seen about moving too fast to this pure efficiency mode?
My uncle always said, you rush into mistakes. And I know that's not a new one, but it's true with everything. It's just trying to take your time. With it all, I think the excitement around, operationally, you look at, well, this can improve this, and you look at margins, and you get very excited about it.
What have you seen that caused this type of failures when implementing new projects?
Well, like you mentioned, moving fast, but also too at the same side, not tracking your results or not staying on top of it is where it's, you kind of lose. Yeah, you have your initial ROI, right?
That looks operationally when, let's say, projects are side work, but when they try to merge, is not the best experience.
That's happened a few times. I've been a part of a few different situations where everybody's going 100 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you realize you're going in a different direction. So that can definitely be difficult.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inside Delegated Authority. Today's guest is Tom Hawkins, partner and chief operating officer at Elevate Claim Solutions. He leads operations with a sharp focus on claims excellence, operational discipline, and building high-performing teams in the property and casualty space. Tom brings over 15 years of hands-on claims leadership experience, having held roles across organizations like Church Mutual, West Bend Mutual, Farmers Insurance, and Liberty Mutual, before stepping into executive leadership at Elevate, from field property loss specialist to director of claims and now COO. Tom has seen the full cycle of claims operation, from boots on the ground, adjusting to strategic oversight of process, talent, and performance. At Elevate, he's helping shape a modern claims organization built around empathy, efficiency, and continuous improvement, ensuring that operational rigor and customer experience move in lockstep. With AIC and AINS certifications reinforcing his technical depth, Tom combines frontline credibility with executive vision, making him uniquely positioned to talk about what's really happening inside claims organizations today, where workflows break, where technology helps or hurts, and what it truly takes to scale without sacrificing quality. Tom, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. Happy to be here. I appreciate the intro and looking forward to our discussion.
Now, amazing. The first question that I have for you is, you've spent your career in claims leadership across carriers and now on the independent side. What does your role actually look like on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. My role on a day-to-day basis is an interesting one. It kind of pivots every single day. And just like as an adjuster, it starts out one way that I think it's going to go. And then by the end of the day, there's 15 new things that pop in. But I'm responsible for all of our daily operations, for all of our services, TPA, independent adjusting work, and then to our scope only works. There's a lot of, I guess on the front end side of things, operationally making things are going, making sure claims are coming in, claims are getting scripted, assigned, pending claims are being reviewed. We have a QA process. So everything, coming in is coming out, and the overall quality of work is there. A lot of client relations as far as meetings with our clients and keeping things going there as far as making sure we're meeting their standards and delivering on what we promise. And then too, the normal, I guess, executive leadership, operational things. So working with folks, running reports, asking questions, making sure that we're doing the best that we can every single day.
Yeah, that's the idea. And something that I always get questions for is, when you look at operations or claims operations broadly, where do you feel teams most commonly lose time without actually realizing it?
Time's usually lost. I think, especially the last few years, looking at it, is a lot of busy work. Right, simple tasks is where time is lost. I think too, in a claims organization, where service customer experience is the number one priority. And when you look at, say you time study certain activities, the time suck essentially is in the processing of moving things around. Like I said, scripting things, putting things, entering information in. So I definitely think that is the biggest area of improvement or efficiency that can be made, whether it's on a carrier side or on a independent adjusting or TPA side.
And we have all been there with busy work. At what point that busy work, let's say, compiles enough to become operational friction and then become visible enough for leaderships to say, like, hey, we actually need to change something here?
Yeah, I think too, as far as like I mentioned, as far as on a leadership side, I always look at data, right? Data is not going to tell you exactly what's what, but for me, I use it to ask questions. So as far as from a high level, your numbers start getting out of whack as far as the average cycle times, things of that nature, first contact. So you start asking the question. So I think as far as the data driven, right, that's going to show you where to look. And then once you look and ask questions, but also too, on the flip side of that, I think as far as on the culture of an organization, sometimes I shouldn't say sometimes, most of the time, you're going to know about an inefficiency based off of communication with your team. They're going to come to you and say, hey, here's what we got. Here's our suggested improvements. We need to make this change now, or we have some ideas for what we could do. What do you think? So I think as far as the group and organization in itself is that healthy culture is what promotes the identification of some opportunities for improvement or when things get out of line.
Yeah, a good mentor of mine always told me, like, you get three, let's say, three types of warnings in life. You get a feather, then you get a
Mhm.
brick, then you get run over by a truck.
Yeah, exactly.
We always want to actually do something when you get hit by a feather, but
Mhm.
more often than not, we actually do things when we were run over by the truck. What are those early signs, let's say, that as a claim operator, you should start following that, leveraging that data that it's basically on the feather stage, not being run over by the truck?
Yeah, I think paying close attention to detail. I think that sometimes you do kind of wait, or I think it's general nature, right? Is kind of wait till like, okay, something is for sure wrong here. Let's do something about it. So, I think as far as just making sure you're paying attention to those details, like I said, the data. That's typically where it starts to pop out, I guess, a little bit, and where you can notice things kind of coming off the rails. When you have that solid communication, I think that too is making sure to listen. Listening is probably the best form of leadership I can say that I've learned across the way. So the people that work here and work I work side by side with are fantastic, are so talented, and really, a lot of the stuff is making sure that communication is consistent, and then I step out of the way. Right, and it's an empowerment of the group, and like I said, going back to it, it's paying attention to those details, not ignoring things, asking the next question, and that kind of solves it or gets us on a path of a solution for sure.
Okay. So now we got into data analyzing, listening to the team. How
Mhm.
much of the claims inefficiency happens, let's say, at intake rather than later on the life cycle?
Well, I think it happens a lot. I think that's a big efficiency gain or efficiency opportunity. And that's one I've looked at the past few years and working with our CEO and Jill Tremmell, CAO Margaret Tilley too, as far as what can we do as far as automation and AI on the front end of things to make sure we can get these claims ingested into our system as fast as possible so it can get to an adjuster as fast as possible so that customer policyholders contact. So I think there's a lot there, and there has been. We worked. Actually, his name's Asif Bakar. Worked with him quite a bit on our intake of new claims to get that set up. Now, it's not a 100% AI efficiency, and I don't think anything ever should be looked at that. But the percentage increase of productivity for our admin staff to enter claims is down significantly, and I think significantly is an understatement. So, lots of opportunity in that side of claims.
Yeah, I know that that's good to hear. And the other side is that with when a new system, let's say a new claims enters the system, where do you see the delays on? Is it incomplete information or system that you're testing limitation that you need to refine and evolve, or a workflow design? What have you seen that creates the biggest delays?
Well, the data entry piece, but I think as far as delays go, if you can get as much information teed up as possible, I guess teed up is the best way I can put it, because then, as far as your dispatch and communication with your adjusting staff, that all still needs to happen. So complete automation, I don't think is necessarily an answer to that, but I always set it up as a goal, right? As far as like, what can we get going? What can we put out to enhance and improve the efficiency of a decision that's being made.
Got it. Yeah, it's well, I agree with you. We should never aim for 100% automation. Some things must be double checked. But right now, we're entering or leaving a soft market, and margins are starting to become tighter and tighter across the industry. How do you feel this cost pressure is influencing, let's say, operational decisions in claims?
A tremendous amount. It is a constant thought of mine, a constant thought of ours too, as far as the talent in the insurance claims world is something, there's a talent gap there. So how can you bridge that talent? What can you bring in to bridge that talent? And then at the same time, as you scale an operation, you just don't want that necessarily to be add more people. So how can you make your very talented, solid people more efficient? And that's where we've kind of put a lot of resource into, put a lot of time into, as far as every kind of dissecting every aspect of the claims process. So it has a lot of pressure. Like I said, as far as those margins, people cost quite a bit of money, to be honest with you. And I enjoy working with people, and we always will work. But how can we improve our current staff as much as possible without just adding more people and more money, because those margins are tight?
Yeah, I've seen the two things that great leaders focus. It's developing current talent and providing current talent with better tools, because the better tools they get, the more outcome they will be able to empower. And usually better tools comes with transformations. I'm pretty sure you have seen multiple operational transformations before, ones that have been
Mhm.
very successful. What's the biggest mistake leaders or you feel leaders make when implementing a new technology, a new system, or a new process?
Yeah, this is actually something I learned off of one of my prior leaders at an insurance carrier. And it's always, everybody gets so excited, right? You put all the effort in and you're going to go through, you have your MVP and you get everything working and the transformations happening. There's change management, right? So you're going through and figuring out how to, you know, I don't want to say sell it, but how to explain the why behind everything, get buy-in on what you're doing, and have it implemented as seamlessly as possible. But what's interesting is the actual gap that I learned and learned it through this individual was the tracking of its success. That seems to, everybody, including myself, you go through change management and you climb on top of the mountain and you want to place the flag. Like, we did it, but that's only the beginning. I think as far as managing and tracking success is just as important as far as on the implementation side. And that's something I've worked on projects before and I've been guilty of it, and something that I've learned. But, making sure that, on a weekly, monthly basis, you're tracking how it's going. You're constantly challenging the process as you go through. It's not a one-time solution. A lot of times too, you work on, or I've been a part of, different projects where it takes a while to get to where you need to go. And as soon as you're where you need to go, it needs to be updated, right? So it is a constant improvement cycle.
And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that tracking at the beginning creates a lot of friction for both ends, you as a leader and the other people as actually implementing the tool. How do you track, and what type of information or metrics do you track to make sure that the project is on track and the investment actually worked?
Sure. So yeah, going through the project, obviously different milestones that are set, different sprints, if you will. But as far as you work through those and hit goals, as far as on the production side, I guess those are what I'm tracking. And then at the same side, when you are through it, all your KPIs or indicators of what you set for your, I guess it kind of depends per project, right? So as far as like what exactly you're laying out, but you have to identify certain goals and certain metrics that you want to be at. And maybe this is self-determined, but it's usually based off of some sort of data, industry data, your own data. So setting those goals and then not necessarily just keeping those goals, but altering them as you move forward. So that's where I focus in on is, it's not just one goal. Is this being met or not? Like, is this what is the cycle time? What is I guess I'll just say, from the implementation of AI on the front end process of claims, right? Like, what is our ingestion time? What is our accuracy percentage? And how does that fluctuate, short term and long term? So those are kind of the areas that I focus in on and continually track as we improve as an organization.
And I would say the ideal world is that you implement the project, track the metrics, and everything goes smoothly, which is
Yeah.
more often than not very
I don't know if
unlikely.
it's possible, but close to is the goal.
Yeah, exactly. But we cannot ensure that that's the ideal path. How have you mitigated in the past to actually make sure that, oh, we're a little bit off course, we need to make these changes? And how do you find those off course moments and how do you correct them?
Yeah, I think too that communication is key in everything, and having the full transparency, and you have to have those touch points and consistent touch points. I think it can be easy to get off track when asking individual questions and not group questions, right? To make sure that you're, kind of calibrating together. So I think that, that's always important, as far as on that side of things. They say you can pull data and see where you're at and different milestones and set those milestones, but you have to be able to communicate with each other, because typically, it's not just one, two people working on a project. There are numerous individuals, all taking part.
And then we other have the people component. We have seen some people actually adopt completely the new workflows, become champions, people that actually want to implement the technology. And then we have other people that say, I don't know, not for me. And they revert quickly to old habits. How have you managed that in the past?
Well, that's a difficult one. Teach an old dog new tricks, right? That's something I think will always be a standard challenge, I guess is the best way I could put it. But as long as you explain the why behind everything and that transparency, on a change management side, whether who it is, someone that's ready to jump in, they're, your subject matter expert, they're so, bought in, versus the, hey, I've always done it this way and it's worked for me. So why am I going to change? Having that conversation and the big picture conversation. Sometimes it's not just a, hey, here's a broad email. This is what we're doing. Jump on board and we're going places. A lot of it can be, direct communication with folks, and why it's important to the organization, why it's important to them, how it's going to affect them. And two, as I go back to what I originally said, the listening piece to it too, because a lot of times the individuals that say no out of the gate, always been doing it this way and it works this way. Sometimes they have the best suggestions of what you can improve into it. You just have to listen to it, but you got to open the door or window or whatever you want to say to get that feedback. Because a lot of times, if you don't want to necessarily change, nobody really likes change, but it's a quick close the door and okay, I'm not going to do this, or I am going to do this. So I think you have to make an effort to make those lines of communication open.
Yeah, communication, I would say, has been critical and it helps. I always say there's no way to over communicate. There's always something to be done. And that also happens in organizations. There's always a way to improve it. And what are those manual tasks that you still see around that shouldn't exist anymore? And they're still in the pipeline to being automated.
What do I see? Yeah, I think there's a lot that are out there, and really, when you, like I mentioned in the beginning, you look at the front end side of things, right? And even too, we're looking at some technology where on the back end side of things, as far as your reviewing of information, where you have a lot of structured data, right? You have guidelines and things that you can compare to. So why can't you, tee that up for someone that it would take them normally 45 minutes to look at to 10 minutes or 5 minutes, just solely based off of utilizing AI improvements and comparing data, and you're managing kickouts instead of managing work. So I think there's, like I said, front end, back end review process, and then in the middle too, as far as keeping tasks managed, right? So a lot of leaders in mid-level management, frontline managers will be managing tasks and asking questions and pushing and driving results, right? So some of the information can be automated, or some of those tasks can be automated to remind someone, and not just like automated like, hey, you need to have this diary complete, but now all of a sudden it's in the method that they prefer, right? Maybe it's a text message, maybe it's an email, maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a, hey, this person wants to be called with, a package of 10 different things that they need to keep updated. Maybe one is, I just need a text message on each one, whenever it is, maybe, a couple times a week or whatever it may be. So it's like, there's options. Just like, in the property claims world, methods of inspection, right? There's methods of communication. Um, I think paying attention to those, and two, let me back up. Methods of inspection, methods of communication, and methods of payment too, right? It's not just a check in the mail anymore. There's Venmo, there's PayPal, there's instant ACH transfers. There's so many different aspects or different avenues that you can use to resolve an insurance claim or settle an insurance claim. It's just paying attention to that and asking the question of what's preferred.
Yeah, and some people have this idea that everything will be automated, which we have we have already discussed. That's very unlikely. And how do you balance, let's say, that automation with human judgment on the claim side?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think too, as far as like, I'll pay attention to different, social media chats and groups and things, and when we look at insurance, and there's so many aspects from underwriting, you have sales, you have claims, every aspect of it. I think there's a fear of it, right? Like, and I have a fear of it too. But on the side of, oh, this is going to replace me, it's like, no, it's more or less going to make you more efficient. And I think that's the correct way to look at it. And like I mentioned, like if you can take one task and you can improve it, even if it's 20%, 10%, if you can get an 80% improvement of efficiency on it, that's a win. So as far as utilizing the talented people that you have, and I don't want to say selling it, but explaining it on the side of like, this is going to enhance what you're doing, and it's going to take away your time to do X, Y, Z, so you could focus on the policyholder, focus on the extra communication of, hey, a homeowner wants to talk about their fish tank. Next thing you know, you're talking a half hour in their fish tank instead of doing data entry.
And then we see organizations like pursue efficiency, do more with less. That culture is very common nowadays. What risks have you seen about moving too fast to this pure efficiency mode?
My uncle always said, you rush into mistakes. And I know that's not a new one, but it's true with everything. It's just trying to take your time with it all. I think the excitement around, operationally, you look at, well, this can improve this, and you look at margins, and you get very excited about it, but it is easy to fall into that, of like, just, pushing forward. So there's got to be the pilots, there has to be the tests, there has to be the paying attention to that data coming out, then analyzing, okay, well, what's next, and what's the risk of what's next, and making sure that those match up, and then going to that next stage. So stepping stones, just like you're learning, as a new adjuster, you're learning how to handle a claim. It goes all the way through as far as the projects and the things you're working on operationally. You set the stepping stones, and then you kind of fill in those gaps as you move along. And it's not a perfect science, and each thing, each task, each project has a mind of its own, but paying attention to those details, and I don't know, keeping an open mind to things, and obviously keeping that reality of like, yeah, I want to move really fast, but I really got to check myself here.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's correlated with going really fast to failed projects, but I'm pretty sure you have seen projects that look very successful. They launched it, everybody was really excited, and then failed 6 months
Yeah.
after. What have you seen that caused this type of failures when implementing new projects?
Well, like you mentioned, moving fast, but also too at the same side, not tracking your results or not staying on top of it is where it's, you kind of lose. Yeah, you have your initial ROI, right? Okay, boom, here we go, we got this going. Well, if you're not diligent and detailed on the back end of things, like it has a tendency just to fall off and fail. Like it's just what happens. So, I think too, as far as the like I said, rushing into things too. And I think of our CEO, Jill Trumbull, where she's like, well, listen, I'd rather have a completely missed opportunity than take the opportunity and fail at it. And so when you look at it from that manner, and you look at the sensitivity of every aspect of it, right, as you're going through the sprints, as you're going through the build, and then you're looking at the change management, and you're dialing in, the why behind it, and the communication, and working through, you just have to be very segmented and very diligent on the entire path of the project. And it's easier said than done, but it really comes down to basics of different things. Whether it's, I look at sports when I was a kid, and your fundamentals, like if you stick to your fundamentals, it'll Tim Duncan from the San Antonio Spurs, right? Mr. Fundamentals. Like, you can be successful as long as you stay true to that. And that's difficult to do sometimes, but really that's what you need to do.
Yeah. And somebody said the boring part.
Yeah. It can't be more.
On the other side, you see, let's say every department launches their own automation, their own new project successfully. But then they forgot one piece, which is communication. And it's not only people communicating, but systems communicating. What have you seen that looks operationally when, let's say, projects are siloed and siloed work, but when they try to merge is not the best experience?
It's happened a few times. I've been a part of a few different situations where everybody's going 100 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you realize you're going in a different direction. So that can definitely be difficult. And I think too, I've learned how critical test environments are, right? So you can make sure that integrations and APIs, the things are all connected together as they need to be. And that's where the test environment's important. But a controlled live environment and a live pilot is by far the best, I guess, situation that I can identify as far as on a learning side. Because it's easy, right? It's like, okay, everything works in the test environment and these systems are connected and you're kind of running simultaneously. And you're like, okay, here's our go live date. And you just let her loose. Well, that's not the best, because most of your learning is going to be in that first few days, right? As soon as you go live and you walk something through step by step, cool, everything's set up, test environment, but that's a critical piece to it. So making sure that you're cognizant of, all right, let's hold back, and then two, make corrections. Let's check ourselves, make corrections, and continue to do so. And even too, when you are fully live, that's where the tracking the results comes from, and continuously looking at things. So I don't think it ever stops, really.
Yeah, it's what they call continuous improvement. And continuous
Yeah.
improvement usually comes from very, very tough lessons, I would say. And looking back at your career, what lessons did you have had to learn the hard way?
A lot of them. Failure is a part of learning, or it provides learning opportunities, right? So the lessons I've learned, we've talked, don't move too fast. Stick to the fundamentals. It's okay to fail. And, obviously you want to mitigate risk and mitigate a failure. But at the same time, I've learned along the way too, how critical your leadership is on the side of allowing you to fail, right? So like having that confidence to try something new, do something, as long as you have a full thought process of, okay, well, here's what this affects, or here's who's all involved, or this might be the outcome of this. I think that's important to growth. I welcome it. Obviously, you don't want to face it all the time, but I think that as far as in my career, some of the bad beats per se haven't been that bad, just as far as having a sense of humility of like knowing that they are going to happen. You can't necessarily avoid them all. You have some, even a part of a successful project. So I guess that's what I've learned. I continually learn. I don't know everything, and I never will know everything. And I think just having that mindset is the best route to take.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And with these learnings, now you have a solid baseline to look forward. And let's say over the next 12, 48, 60 months down the line, what do you feel will separate those claim organizations that thrive from those that will struggle?
I think culture is key. Culture, if you have a group of attraction and you want people to be a part of it, that's tremendously huge. It has a gigantic impact and separates companies from others. And as I mentioned, there's that talent gap. So if you can have the very talented people wanting to work, that's due to your culture. And then two, utilizing technology and the efficiency gains, say AI, doing it the right way, having it implemented to influence and have an impact on tasks, reduce mundane, data entry type work. I think it's balance, right? Balance of it all. It's not one key aspect to it, but honestly, as much as some organizations want to resist that change, want to resist the use of technology, it's moving in that direction. And I think it's tremendously important to be knowledgeable of it, knowledgeable of what's going on, what's happening. And maybe it's not just a complete like revamp of certain things and certain activities, but take a little nibble. try it out. See, maybe that's not right for your organization, but continuously trying new things, I think, is the name of the game. And if you're trying new things, you're utilizing technology where you can, and you have a great culture, that's a pretty solid recipe for success.
Really appreciate, Tom. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks, everybody. This was Inside Delegated Authority. This is your host, Daniel, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.